Hello and welcome to Guider's Gun Guide. I'm Ben Guider, your host, and today we're going to do a quick video tutorial for setting up a ballistics app called Strelok Pro. The reason I'm doing this is I've seen a number of posts throughout various Facebook groups and places that are people are asking about, what ballistics calculator or app or solution are different people using. And, of course, some come across Strelok, and Strelok is not exactly what I would call intuitive in its configuration and setup. It took me a little bit. Maybe I'm just slow. But here you see on my tablet here, I got a few different ballistic apps and different software here, right? Including Chairgun, which is another really good piece of ballistic software. It's actually very simple to set up. I like it. It's got some features. Strelok's got some others that the two don't have. I'm not really arguing or comparing between them. But I use Strelok because I like a couple of functionalities that it's got, and that's what I'm using. I've used Chairgun as well. Great software. So first off, we're going to open up Strelok. And when you first load up Strelok Pro, this is what you're going to see, or something pretty close to it. You're going to see your distances, default it's set out at 100 yards. You've got, slope angle, which is your shooting angle, right? Whether you're shooting uphill, downhill. You can input wind speed, and then of course the direction that the wind is coming from. And you can even input the Coriolis effect. That is some really advanced long-range shooting data or calculations there. At airgun distances, you don't really have to worry about that. But you can play with it if you want. Great times. You can also input your weather conditions because temperature and air pressure, humidity levels, all of this does affect the flight of a projectile. This app, you can either do a quick calculation from your altitude, getting a GPS fix, or it will even plug you into the internet, and based upon wherever you're located, it will, there's your temperature and current pressures and humidity levels. Great stuff. Okay, so you can really get accurate with the data that you put into this, which also gives you really accurate flight performance of your pellets, slugs, what have you. But we're not going to get into all those deep things. I'm just going to show you how do you set up a gun and get it plugged in baseline, okay? Just your start points, okay? So here in the middle of the screen, just above the red word of calculate, you've got this is going to be your scope, zeroing, and rifle, pellet, bullet, all that sort of data is going to get loaded here. Now, first things first is up here at the top where it says sample replace with your own data. It took me an insanely long time to figure out that this is a field to fill in. It is the name that you're giving to this profile. I put in the name of my gun and the caliber, that sort of information. And so we're going to put in, let's see, and you can put in whatever you want, right? You can name this Betsy or, whatever pet name you got for your gun or whatever you want to call it, okay? But we're going to say my 177, okay? That's just what I'm calling the profile. Do what you want with it. All right, next up, we're going to configure the big box here in the middle. This is going to configure your cartridge. This works for firearms and pellets both. So you can put in your firearms data, and there's all kinds of really good stuff here. So we'll look down here at the bottom left. You've got actually fully configured cartridge data. All kinds of calibers, gauges of shotguns, all kind, it's pretty extensive. I would dare say just about everything's in this. And of course you can filter by your vendor. And so if you had a specific, let's say, here I've got 22 long rifle. Let's say I was using this guy right here, the Stanger. His 22 Plinkster calls it. Love that guy. Isn't he awesome? So it's got all kinds of really good data, including the stated velocity for the projectile and all that sort of stuff. But we're configuring for a pellet. Okay, so we're going to go back out, and here at the bottom right of your screen, you've got the pellet database. And if you look, it looks like Diabolo pellets, right? Diabolo being the shape of that pellet skirt looks like a badminton shuttlecock, right? So we open that up, and here, of course, because it's pellets, you start your filtering by caliber. So we're doing a 177 gun, and now we can pick whatever caliber or whatever brand pellet we're using. So I'm going to say my 177, let's say it's using JSBs, and let's say we're shooting the exact heavies, the 10.3 grain pellets, these right here, okay? So there's a lot of data that this comes pre-configured with. So here at the top, we got the name of the pellet, right? Exact heavy 10.3 grain JSB. We actually have the bullet or pellet length, nose to tail, its diameter, its weight, and its ballistic coefficient. Now, sometimes the ballistic coefficient is provided by the manufacturers. Sometimes you can actually, you can do certain tests and things to determine the ballistic coefficient of your pellets. Really good stuff there. Now, just showing that to you, next step for configuration, you want to input your drag function. Now, what is a drag function? Drag function is a mathematical formula that dictates how a projectile or an object moving through the air interacts with the air over time, distance, at certain velocities, at certain air pressures, all this sort of stuff. It's a lot of information about how that projectile slips through the air. Okay. Now, there's all kinds of different drag functions that exist for different reasons, different purposes, different shaped projectiles, so on and so forth. For the Diabolo pellet, drag function you need to use is GA. Okay. Took me a lot of digging and reading to find that, but GA is the drag function. Now, here's the thing. I am not a fluidics expert. I am not a fluid dynamics expert. I'm not a physics expert. I'm none of that. Okay, so don't ask me to get deeper into how drag function and what it all means. And I just know that ballistic coefficient is how easily a object moves through the air, how well it can overcome effectively, atmospheric density resistance and retain its velocity without being slowed down. Drag function is a longer calculation of all that data, okay? But short answer, pick your pellet, okay? Pick your pellet, find it, input it, drag function GA, bullet speed. Now, if you do not have a chronograph, there are videos out there that show you how to get some sort of estimate of your pellet speed. But this is really important because you need to know the velocity, the muzzle velocity of your pellet to produce accurate data in the rest of this program. So in my hypothetical gun, I'll say that it's shooting 10.3 grain pellets let's say it's shooting them at 875 feet per second. All right, so I've put in 875, click OK, and there we go. There's my bullet speed of 875. There's some other data here with your zero offset and things of that nature. That's deeper than I'm going to go in this video. So let's go ahead and click OK. And now you've got all of your data for your pellet, its velocity, its muzzle velocity, good to go. All right. So let's come up here to the scope, and we're gonna have to go into this and then come back into it in a minute. First thing I'm going to draw your attention to, we've got zero distance. This is whatever distance your scope zeroed at. Sorry about that. Looks like I'm getting some posts there. Let's see. You can configure your scope. So if your scope uses MOA clicks, or if it uses inches, you can put that information in. I'm going to use inches at 100 yards, and because I've got a specific scope that I know is 0.25 inches at 100 yards, that's its click interval. And that is, so down here you can pick your scope reticle, and it's actually, there's a whole bunch of different ones in here. It's a very extensive database, but it actually has some, it has an easier way to find stuff. So it's got search reticle right here. So we're going to open that. And I have a UTG scope, and it's the UTG 3 to 12 by 44. Okay, it's got a mil dot reticle. I'm putting that in. Now this particular scope has 3 to 12 magnification, and its ranging magnification is a power of 10. Okay, now what does that mean? So with a mil dot scope, mil dots allow you to estimate distance based upon size of object. So if you know that the object is, let's say 10 inches tall, okay? And 10 inches tall is, through your reticle is however many mil dots at a given distance. Okay, so the further the object is away, it's going to look smaller in your scope, in your reticle, and it will be fewer mil dots tall or wide. Right? You can measure both ways. And that's just based on if you know how big the object is that you're aiming at. Closer it is, it's going to look bigger, and it's going to be more mil dots. There's a whole calculation that exists out there for figuring this out. The UTG actually comes with a mil dot card that helps you do all this math and calculations. I've only just started getting into that, but it's really fascinating, really fun for me. But definitely look into it. So that information's here. Now, here's the other thing that you need to figure out and configure. Your scope height in inches. So what this is the center line of your scope, okay, so the sight line, how far that sight line is, that center line is above the center axis or the bore of your barrel, okay? So the middle of the barrel, so if you're looking at your barrel on end, it's the middle of that. You want to look at that distance between your scope center line and your barrel center line. Measure that. Tape measure, calipers, micrometer, whatever you've got, measure that. Put that in inches, and there you go. Now, the reason that's important, and you'll see that here in a minute, is your sight line and your pellet or bullet, they don't actually intersect immediately, right? The pellet, as soon as it leaves your barrel, it's 2 inches below your sight line, or 3 inches, or 1.5 inches, or whatever it is. So if you're shooting at an object that's, close, the pellet is still below your sight line. So even though got your crosshairs on the object, your pellet, if it, again, if whatever you're shooting at is low or is close to you, it's going to hit low. Okay. So knowing that information helps do some other calculations here in a minute. So get that information, put it in. I'm not going to change what's here. I'm just going to leave it. Okay. I'm going to say that my hypothetical gun is 2-inch scope height. Okay. All right. Last thing, twist rate. Now, this one is arguably of more or less importance in your air rifle, depending on the distance that you're shooting at. But if you know your twist rate, if it's published by the manufacturer, which a lot of them don't, a lot of your higher end ones will, right? FX and Daystate, right? You can get that information from them. But, maybe Crossman on the 1322 or on, a Daisy 880, we may not, you may not have the twist rate, and you might have to go digging in forums, or there are some videos out there for how to use a cleaning rod and a patch and determine your own twist rate. Okay, so whether you've got a right hand twist rate or a left hand twist rate, right, you can put all that information. Now, Here's where the cool tool is, okay? Down here at the bottom, or near the bottom, we have the MRD calculator, this guy right down here. We're going to go into there. Now, what this does, sorry about that, what this does is it helps you calculate your MPBR, maximum point blank range, okay? Now, what is a maximum point blank range? So this is really something that's useful, and you see our picture here, you know, we've got a picture of a deer. This is really a tool used by hunters to minimize how much range estimation and hold over, hold under, or, you know, whatever they have to do to hit the vital organs of the animal, the deer, the rabbit, the whatever. They'll calculate their maximum point blank range. Okay. Now, what that means, basically, all that allows the hunter to do is, as long as what they're shooting is within the distance of their maximum point blank range, they can center hold their crosshairs on the their vital organ target. They don't have to hold high, they don't have to hold low, and they know that their pellet or bullet will hit inside of the vital organs, a vital target area of their target, okay, of the animal, in order to produce that clean, ethical kill. All right. So you go, all right, that's great. How do we figure all that out? Well, pretty straightforward, actually. So the first thing you need to know is, how large is the vital organ area of what you're shooting? Okay. So I've got a 177 caliber hypothetical pellet rifle here. Okay. Shooting 10.3 grain pellets. So I'm not going to shoot a deer with this. I've looked up online, and apparently the average size of a squirrel brain is about 3 centimeters front to back. Okay. When we do the calculations on that, right, 2.54 centimeters is 1 inch. So we're talking about hitting the brain of a squirrel is a little over an inch. Okay, so we'll call that 1.5 inches, just for some round numbers. Actually, no, we're going to say it's an inch. Okay. So the total target area, vital area that we're targeting, is 1 inch. And we want to be able to center hold and know that our pellet is going to hit within that vital area. What that means. Come down here to your maximum trajectory height, okay? And what this is whatever the vital area is divided by 2. Okay, it's the radius, okay? You see it says it right here, vital zone radius. The vital zone of our squirrel, 3 centimeters, we'll call that 1 inch, okay? Round numbers. It's a little bigger than that, but round numbers, okay? That gives us a little margin of error if we go with an inch. So what that means is 1/2 inch is our vital zone radius. Okay, so 1/2 of that total distance, which is 1 inch that we're calculating, we'll call that 1/2 inch for its radius. Awesome, right? Just punch calculate, and there we go. Based upon all of the other data we configured, scope height, velocity, ballistic coefficient, drag function, all that other data we configured, based on that, the software is able to predict the flight trajectory of your pellet. Okay, so if you look on our picture here of the deer, the red is that flight trajectory. Okay, your pellet bullets, they don't fly laser straight. Okay, they shoot in what's called a ballistic arc. Okay, that means they shoot up and they reach a zenith. Is that the word? At the top, and then they fall back down towards Earth. Okay, and the harder the taller that arc is, we can lob something further. Okay, but what that means, the steeper that angle, the bigger that arc is. What we're trying to do is we're trying to produce a shot trajectory that does not go higher than half an inch above line of sight. Okay, so this zone up here above line of sight, the solid line, solid white line here, that's line of sight. The dashed line is the maximum elevation above line of sight that we want the pellet to go. And we've said in our calculator here, 1/2 inch. Okay, we don't want to go above 1/2 inch. But maximum point blank range says, okay, at some point it'll cross the line of sight. Great, that's where it's zeroed. And then the pellet will continue to fall out to a certain distance down to whatever we said, 1/2 inch again. So what that means is, given all of our data about this gun, about this pellet, about the velocities, about the ballistic coefficients, about all that stuff, maximum point blank range is approximately 49 yards. In order to achieve that, so just under 50 yards, okay, so we got about a 50-yard gun here, flat shooting, okay? Recommended zero distance to get this is 44 yards, not 50. If you zero at 50, you're going to produce different results. But this right here, zeroing at 44 yards, will give you a 1/2 up and a 1/2 inch down pellet path, so that as long as your target is anywhere between 49 yards and it's going to be, and I'll show you that in a minute, about 5 yards in front of your gun. I think it's 5 yards, 10 yards in front of your gun. So anywhere between 10 and 50 yards, center hold on that squirrel's head should hit, okay? Here's the cool thing. Notice on this diagram, your pellet actually cross line of sight at a near point and at a far point. Here's what that means. You can actually do what's called a near point zero, and in this case, that's 17 yards. And that will allow your pellet to still be a 44-yard zero and still be 49 yards maximum point blank range in this example, okay? So we have to go back now. Now we've got our data. We've got our zero distance of 44 yards. So we're going to close this. We're going to go back to our scope, and we're going to plug in zero distance, 44 yards. And here's where the cool part comes. If down here at the bottom, we've got the spreadsheet form that will display how our gun is performing. Okay, so let's go to that. It's the second, right here, just above where exit is, the second button up. And we're going to do a little more configuration here, and this is kind of personal taste, okay? But I'm going to configure start distance. This is where the table is going to begin. I'm going to start it at 1/2 yard, because I want to show you exactly how this pellet's performing over distance. And because we've got a maximum point blank range of, it was like 49 yards, let's go out to 55 yards. Step is the interval between the data, and you'll see that here in a second. So we're starting at 1/2 yard, and we're going to have data every 1/2 yard all the way out to 55 yards. We've got bullet speed. I like that. Bullet energy, which is really the more important one, especially when you're talking about hunting. Your elevation in inches, your clicks in inches, and there's really fun reasons for that. We won't get into it. Windage in inches, clicks in inches. This is how I normally configure it. For sake of a clean display of what I'm going to show you here in a second, I'm just going to show you inches, okay? Windage and elevation inches. So now my software has shown me, okay, so my muzzle velocity of, what do we say, 875, at 1/2 yard, based on ballistic coefficient, estimated drop down to 872.8 feet per second, and we're looking at 17 foot-pounds of energy, you know, just right at 18, just under 18 foot-pounds of energy at the muzzle, right? Now, elevation in inches. Remember how I said your 1 inch or your 2 inches scope height? This right here is telling me, so I know it says U for up, but you have to think of this kind of in reverse. This is 1.7 inches below your line of sight. And as your pellet's flying, you see it's 1.6, 1.5, 1.4. It's going up, okay? Just like that red arc, it's going up. And out here at, there it is, at 16 and a half, 17 yards, we're at 0. There's our near 0 around 17 yards, which is what the software told us, okay? Now, with D, we are above the line of sight. So now the pellet is going higher than, it's now gone above your sight line at 17 yards. And look here, we calculated, we said we only want to go half an inch up. And here we go. So around 24 yards, the pellet sits at that, out to 27 yards, the pellet is sitting at that 1/2 inch elevation above your line of sight, okay? And then it starts to, let's see, oh, it actually calculated, we ended up getting up to 0.6 inches. So it's not perfect. So it looks like we got just over half an inch. And now we're starting to fall at about, coming back down at 35 yards until we hit our far 0, there you go, at 4.5 yards, okay? And then it continues to fall until we hit our maximum point blank range, our far 0, out here at 49 and a half yards. So what that means is from, let's see, going all the way back up, so at, yeah, remember I said it was around about 10 yards, so here we go, at 11 yards, if the squirrel is between 11 yards and 11 yards and about 49 and a half yards, you can center hold on the vital organs. Okay, so center hold on the squirrel's brain, and this pellet is now going to impact up or down, but it's still going to hit the vital spot. Okay, it's still going to hit your clean ethical kill point. All right. And that's what maximum point blank range does for you. So what this answers is, you know, there's always people, I see them in forums, they're asking, hey, I've got this gun or I have this pellet and what should I zero at? And a lot of good shooters out there, good experts out there, you know, they give, general rough advice, right? And the advice isn't bad, okay? It's good. But if you're a shooter that has access to a chronograph, you can actually get a really good, you know, based upon exactly what you need it to do, you can get some really good data here to say, you know what, a 0 at 50 yards is nice, right? In fact, we could zero this gun that we've built here, we could zero it at 50 yards and be just fine, okay? We might have to hold over or hold under a little bit at some point, but, you know, we just changed maximum point blank range from 49 to a 0 of 50. You know, it's going to be okay, most likely. All right. So you could do that. But, you know, let's say you wanted to have this level of understanding of what your pellet is doing in flight, and you wanted to know, you know what, I don't want to worry about that stuff. I want to have that just a center hold and hit. Well, you need to know all this data. You need to know your velocities to do that. Okay. Now, you know, let's say you get out there and you're shooting and you've got, you know, wind moving at 5 miles per hour between you and your target at 90, you know, crosswind or whatever. You can put all that in here, and you could even get a calculation to say, hey, here's how you need to hold, you know, maybe you need to hold an inch to the right to still hit your target. There's a lot of great data here. A lot of fun stuff if you're into that sort of thing. So, like I say, there's a lot more we could go into here. There's a lot, you know, you can, you know, let me show you. Here's your cool. No. Is it this one? Where is, oh, reticle. So there you go. This is, if I was shooting at a target that's 100 yards, this shows me what I need to look at through my scope with these settings to hit that target. Pretty cool, huh? So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed watching this. We're coming up on the end of our time. Please don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and thank you for watching. We will see you next time.